great. No, we're good. Waiting for people to start, so we're here early. This is great. Be natural.
Yay!
Oh, we live.
Oh my gosh, hey y'all. This is so exciting.
So you can see yourself
Can y'all see it?
No, making sure it was the right one.
Okay. Boop, boop. I was gonna click over. Yay! Oh my gosh, hey Naomi, hey Caitlin, hey Anna Carson. Oh my gosh. Hey Carter, hey B, hey Elizabeth. Yes, Sheldon is also here.
Who's asking my whereabouts?
B saw you. I think he saw your hand.
Oh.
Hey, Kennedy. Alrighty, so we have like a minute before go.
You want to hear a song?
I don't think the people want to hear a song.
Some.
Hey, Cece. So happy you exist. Oh my gosh. Oh, B said he heard you.
Great.
I told you have that resonated voice. It is 6. All right. You know, might as well start on time because y'all know I hate lateness. Okay. So, hey, if you didn't know, my name's Amanda Washington. Welcome to my research presentation and a Q&A afterwards of Metamorphoses. So I was the director for USM's production of Metamorphoses. And, yes, and I was the director. And it was my creative project. A little bit about the creative project. It's done in your 3rd and final year of your MFA here at University of Southern Mississippi. And so Metamorphosis is like a culmination of all of the tools and techniques that I have learned over these past 3 years. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. All right, so what were my initial thoughts about Metamorphosis? I thought it was lovely. I thought it was lovely in its language. I thought the language was very poetic, narrative, and figurative. I thought it was really timeless in a sense because you could do it in the natural Greek and Roman style with the pillars, the marble pillars, and the white togas with the gold braided leaf crowns around your head. Or you could put some of these pieces in modern day and make them right there in your face more relatable. And so the design team and myself did a mixture of both of those. A little bit of, so those were the lovely things I liked about it. There's other parts where I was like, this may be a challenge because there's a pool, if you didn't know that in this show. There is a pool, and I was very concerned about will the school allow me to have a pool on stage? I didn't know. And so there was that hesitancy in submitting it, but also I didn't understand the need for the water. I was like, I can do this show without the water, but then when I get into themes, I'll talk to you about how the water actually was necessary for this show. Something else that I was struggling with at the very beginning of this process, the script analysis process in a sense, because I've been with this show for almost 2 years. I submitted it in September of 2018, found out I was going to direct it in March of 2019, and now we're in 2020. So that's 2 years of being with the show. So trust me, there's a lot of script analysis and questions and answers that have been answered. But yes, I didn't understand why these stories. Didn't understand that at all. So yeah, I think that will lead us into the themes of this show. There's 5 major themes that I wanted to discuss, and the first one being creation. If you've read the beginning of the script, there is this opening that is very representational of the Bible. I'm trying to pull it up. So, and that is in Mary Zimmerman's version, and it's also in Ovid's version. So I'll read it to you. I'll read Mary Zimmerman, then Ovid, and then I'll link it all together with the biblical version. So Mary Zimmerman's version of the creation story: before there was water and dry land, or even heaven and earth, nature was all the same. What we call chaos was neither sun to shed its light, nor moon to wax and wane, nor earth hung in its atmosphere of air. If there was land and sea, there was no discernible shoreline, no way to walk on the one, or swim or sail in the other. There was neither reason nor order until at last a God sparked, glowed, then shone like a beam of light to define earth, and the heavens separate water from hard ground. So that's the scientist lines. And then Ovid writes, before the seas and lands had been created, before the sky that covers everything, nature displayed a single aspect only throughout the cosmos. Chaos was its name, a shapeless, unwrought mass of inert bulk, and nothing more, with the discordant seeds of disconnected elements, all heaped together in anarchic disarray. All things were at odds with one another. Some good or kinder nature settled this dispute by separating earth from heaven, then by separating sea from earth. And then you have the creation story from the Bible, Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and morning were the first day, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. So it's like, Amanda, okay, you've read us 3 different versions of creation. We get that. What's the point of creation? Can you open up a balloon?
Yeah.
I was a light, sorry.
You're just like.
So what's the point of creation? It is.
Want me to get a light, or was that good?
That's good. Okay. It's the starting of the beginning. I really think Mary Zimmerman wanted to emphasize where you start and then where you either end or where you are currently. And that's something that I really took to and wanted to emphasize: the creation, the beginning, the foundation that you come from. So that's one of the main themes that I really wanted to highlight and that the designers and I talked about in our design meetings. Another theme is love. Love. And I know that sounds so blasé or everyday type. Okay, Amanda, let's be a little bit more descriptive. In Metamorphoses, there's these different forms of love. You have love of money. You have the love of food. You have the love for your family. And then you have the love for your romantic partner. And so I wanted to emphasize that love comes in all different forms. In instance, there's the story Alcyone and Ceeks. And the script literally talks about the two characters being young and in love. However, their love, in a sense, doesn't last for long, or it's cut short, at least in this lifetime. And so they actually morph into birds at the very end of the show. Spoiler alert. They morph into birds, and that's how their love continues. So it's finding a way to be with your partner in the physical form of a human being, but also can it translate into something else? And for them, it did. It translated into them becoming 2 kingfisher birds. There's also the showing of the love between 2 characters called Baucis and Philemon. Theirs is a matured love in the sense that they've been married for almost their entire lives. And so it's really interesting that they have their love for one another, and through that love, they were able to give it out to their community. They gave love to 2 strangers who happened to be 2 gods. And then since they were able to give love, the gods blessed them by saying, we'll give you a gift. And the two lovers, Baucis and Philemon, they said they don't want to ever live a day without the other. And so on the last day of their lives, they turned into trees. So those are two different types of love. You have the young love that can last into another form, and then you have the love that's matured over a lifetime that is not necessarily going into another, well, it is going into another physical form, but not a physical form that can move, unless you count a wind moving a tree. There's also the love of family that I wanted to talk about. Midas and his daughter. So before I really dive into this, you have to know the backstory. Midas is someone who he was given a gift by the gods, or he asked for this gift. He said whatever he touches, he would like for it to turn to gold. And you know, that's a gift. Not sure I would want it, but that's a gift. And so in the original telling, Midas doesn't have a daughter, so he doesn't have to worry about what's to come next. But after he's given the gift by Baucis, and in the original telling, it's Dionysus, his daughter runs up to him and he hugs her. Or she hugs him, actually, and then she's turned to gold. They're never going to have any back and forth interaction again. And it's so sad because he didn't value those interactions before. He specifically talks at the beginning of the show about how he's not a greedy man, but he's boasting about all of the materialistic things that he has. And so as soon as his daughter turns to gold, he realizes that, oh my goodness, I can't get these moments back. And so he asked the god Baucis to take it away. And then here's what the god says. He says, walk as far as the ends of the earth. Look for a pool of water that reflects the stars at night. Wash your hands in it, and there's a chance that everything will be restored. So the love for family is really strong because if you heard, the god Baucis said there is a chance. There's a chance. There's not a guarantee, it's a chance. You are about to wander to the ends of the world, walk through terrain, maybe mugged, have to sleep outside possibly, just to get a few more moments, a possible few more moments with your daughter. That has to be some strong love for family. So yeah, those are just a couple of the explanations of love or instances of love in Metamorphosis. Another huge point I wanted to hit is the water. So I mentioned earlier how I didn't understand why we needed water. I was like, we can do this show without water. And many shows have. Hey, can you click this line? It went dark.
Yeah, I saw it and I'm...
Yeah, okay. Good thing we're not at the part where I show the designer's photos.
This is great.
But either way, I have a backup. It might have. But yes, the water. Water in this show connects all of the stories. And that is when I realized that's why we have all of these stories. I think I mentioned earlier about why I didn't understand why we needed these stories in this order and then why these specific stories, because there's a lot of them that I didn't know and I thought she could have used more famous versions. But then I was really doing the analysis and I said the water is what connects them all. And that is why we need the water, or at least some form of physical water that you can see. Not necessarily a pool, but maybe some form of a physical water. And so this is what the water represents. Water can bring life, as in restore it. Water can take away life. And then water can also be a barrier. So restore life. That is what you get with Midas and his daughter. At the very end of the show, Midas washes himself in the pool that Baucis mentions at the very beginning of the show, and then he is restored to his daughter. So water cleansed him of his curse, and now he's back with his daughter. But another version of water being a restorative thing, a cleansing thing, is the story of Erie Sickfin. So if you don't know Erie Sickfin, this dude is not a nice guy. He cuts down trees when they're sacred trees, and he knows he's cutting down sacred trees. He's semi bad for the environment, but but in the end, and then he gets cursed by the god Ceres because he cut down one of her sacred trees. He gets cursed with the need to eat everything. And then, so he runs out of food to eat. And so he finds a seller of food, I guess a grocer. And he's like, all right, I'll sell you my mom in order to have some food. Yes, he sells his mother into slavery. That's what he did. And it's like, okay, sorry, I'm getting on a side tangent. But the mother, she's so distraught that she prays to the god Poseidon, who she used to pray to before as a little girl. And he returns her, he restores her to the young girl that she once was. So she wouldn't have to suffer in slavery because of her son. I said the water can destroy. Take the story once again of Alcyone and Ceres. Ceres goes off to sea so he can visit an oracle. And he never gets to talk with the oracle because the ocean destroys him. Poseidon's waves scoop him and his sailors up, taking him to the underworld. So that is a way that water can destroy things. And then I said water can be a barrier. There is the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. That's a really well-known one. And it is how the bride Eurydice dies right before she and Orpheus get married. And so Orpheus goes down to the underworld. And while he's making his plea to the gods Hades and Persephone of take my life or give me back my bride, but either way, I need to be with my bride, he can't see who he's making that plea to. The script, and he also, Hades, I think, also mentions it, says that there's a waterfall blocking his sight. So he doesn't know who he's making this plea to, but as soon as the waterfall clears, he sees Hades and Persephone, and behind them is his bride, Eurydice. So water is also a barrier. But you see, that's just some of the ways that these stories are connected. It's not a very in your front bold type of statement with the water. It's very subtle because sometimes you don't necessarily need to have the bold things in order to see that it's important. What else that I would like to cover in the themes? Family. There is the family aspect of, specifically, I didn't really notice this until I started actually writing my creative project. The family aspect of the father and the child is strong. I told you about Midas, and then there's Phaeton and Apollo. Phaeton has issues with his father Apollo because he has been absent from his life. And so there's that family element. There's also the family element of, like I said, Erysichthon and his mother. Once again, a problem. There is a very subtle family dynamic between Alcyone and her father Aeolus. And Alcyone says to Ceres, my father will not have mercy on you if you cross these seas. But yet he still does. There's also the family dynamic between Myra and Cinyras, which is something. Because Myra and Cinyras, Myra, she rejects suitors. She's at the marrying age, and she rejects suitors that come asking to marry her. And so Aphrodite, being tired of this, says, okay, if you're going to keep rejecting suitors, I'm going to curse you with lust. And lust, that's fine. You can handle that. Lust for your father, that's not something, at least in this day and age, that you don't really accept that type of thing. So that's one also really looking at the family relationship in this show. It's very strong, like I said, specifically between the father and the child. So family is one of the major 5 themes that I talked about with the designers. And finally, the biggest thing, which led me to my dramatic action statement, is the journey. These characters are going on a journey. and they don't know the outcome. They don't know if they're going to achieve their task or if they're going to fail. But yet they have said, I don't like the cards that have been dealt to me. I refuse to accept this. So I'm going to go on the journey to see if I can change it. And so when I realized that element, I said, all right, the dramatic action statement, the spine, the thing that ties every sentence, every moment together in this show is to endure the unknown. And I just really admire that about these characters, that they said, I refuse to accept what somebody has told me or what the gods have given to me. I can be the captain of my own fate. I am the captain of my own ship. And so that led to the DAS, like I said, to endure the unknown. So all of this talk about themes, what did it lead to? It led to design photos. Sheldon, next slide. Okay, wow, that's really white. Can't see, don't know if y'all can see that. But look, never fear. If you know me, you know I have multiple backups. Never fear. It's just super white. I'm getting there, y'all. Give me a second. All right, here it is. Had to do it on my little Kindle. All right, so you see this first photo of the hands. I saw that photo and I thought it was so representational of, it's the Sistine Chapel, if you didn't know, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, but of the gods giving knowledge to the humans. I thought that was so representational, and I thought that representational of what's happening in this show, because the gods, in the sense, give us, they watch over the humans. They don't necessarily always give knowledge, but they watch over, and sometimes they alter if they don't like what's happening with the humans. But also it represents the beginning of the show about how the woman by the water, she asked the gods for knowledge. She says, bodies I have in mind and how they can change to assume new shapes. I ask the gods for help, who know the trick. Change me and let me glimpse the secret and speak better than I know how of the world's birthing and the creation of all things, from the first to the very last. So I thought this photo was very representational. Let it adjust, Amanda. Let it adjust. Is it adjusting? It's taking its precious time adjusting. Let it adjust. All right. There, yeah. Of God's giving knowledge. This second photo of the women dancing. Those are Isadora Duncan's, those are dancers from the Isadora Duncan Dance Studio. It was a great way, oh, they can see that one. Cool. It was a great way to show the movement, the fluidity that I saw in this show. It was something that I couldn't necessarily vocalize. I told the costume designer and I told Claire, well, honestly, I told everybody, that I see movement. I see it as a fluid motion. I see twirls and flips and rolls on the floor. And I'm pretty sure they all went home that night. I was like, wow, this woman needs to figure out how to articulate better. But through photos, you can also articulate, and this is what I saw. I saw it as something that was fluid. I saw it as an ensemble piece. I saw the motion of the waves that are in the fabric, but I also saw it as something that is so graceful and elegant, but can also turn into something a little bit more in-depth and dangerous. Speaking of how the waves in the fabric can also symbolize waves of the ocean, which can also hurt you. Yeah. Next slide, please. Ooh, okay. This lighting. I wonder if I move. Nope, that ain't it. Mm-mm. You know what? And like I said, if you know me, I always have a backup plan. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is that photo that you're seeing right there. It is waves. I wonder if you turn down the contrast.
I that's what I was doing before with the first one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll be working around it.
That's okay. This is an ocean, and you can't necessarily see it super clear right here, but there are waves right about here, and then there's the ocean or the sky over the ocean. And I just thought it represented really well the two different sectors of heaven and earth. And also I love that color of blue that you can see in it. It was so mesmerizing, the color of that blue. I'm gonna go to the next one.
You want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This one. I can't wait for y'all to see it. Okay, hold on.
How's that one?
Can you see? Oh yeah. Okay, great. You can. No.
Oh, wait, hold on. It adjusted the tree. Did. Well, they can't see the color. Carry on.
Yeah. All right. So the tree. Let's start with the tree. This tree, I was not a fan when I first saw it. Tiffany Neighbors, the lighting designer, brought it in. I thought it was so odd that it was here, but then I really looked at it and I was like, but this is something that captures the eye. I saw the round shapes and also the smooth curvatures of everything in this photos. There's no hard and harsh angles. Everything is rounded and smooth. I really liked that actually when I started to analyze the photo more. And then these colors, there's blues, there's purples, there's oranges, and then there's black. They're colors that you don't necessarily see together all the time because they're so vibrant. But in this photo, I was okay with it. And I really liked that. I thought it was very eye-catching. And then also, if you read the script Metamorphoses, there's a lot of trees mentioned. Once again, it's like the water. It's not in your face, except for the very last tree that's mentioned in the show, and that's between Baucis and Philemon. But there's a lot of trees. So I actually ended up really loving this photo. The second photo is the hand with gold. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to get really close because the reason I like this one is because of the texture. And if you can see, starting with the red cuff, there's like fans in the cuff. Red, old-fashioned, I would say Elizabethan restoration type of fans. And then the hand that's gray, and then you see these gold flecks coming from the person's hand, and out of those flecks are black birds. And now you could say that, oh, this is a representation of Midas. And you know, that is your interpretation of it. That is completely A-okay. But what I saw is the gods bestowing like a miracle or a blessing onto someone or a gift. But what I also saw is the possibility of a human being able to do that. And I just thought that was lovely. I thought it was really lovely. And once again, those colors, the colors were also really nice. Going back, actually, to one more photo that I didn't. In this Sistine Chapel photo.
Is it clear on there? Because I can go to it.
In this, no, you're good.
Okay.
In this Sistine Chapel photo, I wanted to talk about the marble. The marble is something that I was also really attracted to. So remember that because you're going to see it later. Definitely will. All right, the next couple of photos that the designers and I brought in. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. You can see it now. This one. These blues are vibrant, and then there's the lights shining underneath. It's like a pool or an ocean with lights shining underneath, and then can you scroll up? And then this one, these lights are going off into some form of a trail. It definitely reminded me of that dramatic action statement that I told you all about of to endure the unknown. You're going off into the abyss, and then in some instances and in some circumstances, your path will be lighted. Once again, remember this, because it might show up. It might show up. My designers are amazing! Can you go to the other photo? This one. Zoom out a little bit. They need to see the full effect. I promise you. And then, okay, so zoom it a little bit. And now scroll it over. Can you? Ooh, okay, cool. This one. I saw this photo. This is the photo I brought in. When I saw it, I was speechless. I was mesmerized, and I don't know if it was a good mesmerization or a bad mesmerization, but I knew the rest of the team needed to see this because it was very eerie in the sense of a God looking down upon the earth. It made me think of somebody's watching me, and not the good type of watching you, but also it was the good type of watching you. That's why I had to bring it in, because I had two contrasting feelings. It made me feel better in the sense of maybe I'm not alone. Maybe it's not just humans out here in this universe. Maybe there is something bigger or higher that is watching or in control. And also, once again, if you haven't picked up on a lot of these photos, we were really interested in blue and some purples. So yeah, that is that. Next slide. Ooh, okay. Can you zoom in on the cave? Actually, it's actually pretty good. The cave. It's actually a grotto, but you see these formations in here, and it reminded me of Orpheus when he goes down into the underworld. And that's something, an element that we all had to remember of the underworld is here, because we for sure are talking about the gods and how they may be sometimes watching over us, but sometimes they're watching from below in the underworld, because Poseidon lives in the sea. Hades lives in the underworld, which sidebar does not mean hell, it just means the underworld. So yeah, I really like that photo for that. And then the straight lines are something that was also really interesting for me as well. All right, can you go over to the other photo? This one was brought in by Claire Brinia, the set designer. I'm not gonna lie, I saw this photo and I had to really think about it. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't see how it tied into the show, but I put this one in this presentation because it just shows where inspiration can come from. While what is on the set, what Claire designed, is not exactly like this photo, when she showed me the backdrops that were going to be on the set, I immediately knew where she got her inspiration from, and it was from this photo. And I was very appreciative then of that photo because I saw where it took her. So hence why I wanted to include this one. Yeah, it has graffiti writing, there's circles, it says intuition, feeling, desire, history. Choices, yes. Like I said, I wasn't an initial fan, but later on, as we got deeper into the process, I became a fan. Can you go to the next one for me? All right, so this is a collage that we, as the design team and myself, I'll go back before.
Sorry.
This is a collage to the one that the design team and I make. It starts off with, you don't have to zoom in for this one.
Oh, okay.
It starts off as you're in the heavens. We didn't get to see this photo because the computer was not behaving.
We can go back?
No.
Okay.
But it is a garden. And gardens are also super big. And not necessarily super big, but I mentioned trees are here. So you can find trees and gardens. And then you have this level of what's possibly happening on Earth. And then we took it down lower into the underworld. So there's, in a sense, 3 levels that you can see in Metamorphoses that you also can see in our design collage. All right, cool. Now I'm ready. The design of Metamorphoses. You're about to see the juiciness that Claire Brinia and Aaron Jester came up with. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, let's go. All right, so don't ignore that for now. Yeah, go to the white model. So, Metamorphosis was going to be performed in the Martha R. Tatum Theater at University of Southern Mississippi. So, if we start over here where these stairs are, this is going to be covered in soft goods, so you wouldn't see those stairs, but you could see the actors progress up the ramp and stand on what I called in rehearsal the God Scraper. It was extremely high in the air. And that is the reason why this railing is here. Because Claire and I were both concerned, very concerned. And then, so these archways, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 archways. All of these 7 archways could be used for entrances. And then you see this black right here, that is a curtain. However, in actual production of show, it was going to be white. It's black just to denote that it is a curtain. But in the story or in the script of Metamorphoses, there is the story of Eros and Psyche. And Eros, the god of love, also known as Cupid, is naked. And I didn't see the need for that nudity. What Mary Zimmerman was asking for from the script is vulnerability. And I was like, we could definitely do some cool things with silhouette work. And so Claire came up with this lovely idea of putting a curtain track behind the archways and then pulling it out when we need it and pulling it back when we don't. So that's the reason why we have a curtain for silhouette work. And then in this middle archway is a gate. Then you would walk down some steps, and then in the moat area is the pool. So a little bit about the theater, the martial art Tatum. It's a hybrid theater. It is a 3/4 thrust mixed with a proscenium theater. And so the pool is in the moat. It's in the 3/4 thrust part. The stairs are on the stage, and then this main structure is actually a little bit farther back, and then you can walk up to get onto it and things. These blue dots, wow, backdrops. That is the backdrops that they can move up and down in order for us to let the audience know that we are changing location. All right, scroll over to the color model. And so this is what Claire came up with. Yes. You see this marble texture back here? Scroll in for
I can't. I'm trying. It's as far as it goes.
But there is marble texturing on the pillars. And so, like the Sistine Chapel image that we had for inspiration. And then there are the steps that lead into the pool. And then remember how I said there's a lot of circulature, specifically that tree that had the peacocks and everything was round and not hard structured angles. Here you get that roundness going on. These backdrops, they have constellations on them that tie into each story. I actually have a close-up of that, so you don't have to squint your eyes to get there. And yeah, the golden flecks that I talked about with you all from Midas's hand. And then if you can see this, there are circles that represent there are 8 circles and represent the 8 stories in the show. Yeah, this is what Claire came up with. Oh, and here's that white curtain. All right, next slide, please. Okay. Oh, man, can you zoom in?
Yeah.
Zoom in. Oh, yeah, cool. Can you go any further? Oh, there it is. Hopefully you all can see this. If not, these are the constellations that are on the 3 backdrops that would change throughout the show in order to help denote location. And so when they're all aligned, they actually all connect together. And then scroll down. So they all connect together. And then something lovely. So I told you trees are really important in this show, or subtly important, but still important. And I told you that Midas has to go find a pool that is under the stars. So what Claire came up with, which I thought was an amazing idea, is that there is the moon that Midas goes and sees the pool under. And in that moon is a tree. And so you're like, so Amanda, what you're saying to me is I'm going to be staring at this tree the entire time and Midas doesn't see it? No. Claire had this awesome idea of painting it in UV paint. And then at the very end, showing UV light on it. So then and only then, at the very end of the show, you would see the tree. Yeah, I know. It's good stuff. The designers really outdid themselves on this production. Okay, next slide. Or not next slide, but scroll over. And then, so if you've read Metamorphoses, Mary Zimmerman, and zoom in. Yeah, cool. Mary Zimmerman mentions a chandelier. I'm not going to lie to you. I asked Claire for the chandelier. We saw it. We were okay with it. Claire had a better idea, and I went with Claire's better idea. So I'm not sure if you can see it, But she has, if you were in the moat part of the theater, you would look up and then you would see naked Edison bulbs hanging. And they would be in the plotted out like constellations of the northern hemisphere, and they could fully all light up, or they could all go dark. They could shimmer at different times, and I thought that was just lovely because it also could help to note when characters started their journey, or when a god had appeared, or when maybe somebody was going down into the underworld. Can you scroll it over so they can actually see the constellations? Or no, y'all can't see it, but just know it's plotted out in the northern hemisphere. Next slide. Yeah. And the design was by Claire Brinia. We got some costumes for you. All right. So all three of these characters are in, you can't see, let me. Okay. Yeah. So scroll it up. Actually, just go back out.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so all three of these characters are in Alcyone and Seeks. This is Alcyone and Seeks, and how I mentioned earlier that they turn into kingfisher birds. Aaron Jester, the costume designer, had this idea of putting feathers on the back of their outfits in order to give a precursor, in a sense, to the audience that they might change. And oh, do they do by the end. And then over here is Iris. Iris is... she's known for being a rainbow. And so Aaron also came up with the season cycle for the show of fall, spring, winter, all of those lovely moments in the year. And so she put Iris as the fall because she's a rainbow. That is like her Greek origin. And so she gave her this lovely skirt that is colorful, but not necessarily all automatically hinting at, I'm a rainbow, but very subtle in that sense. And I really like that about that. And she's also one of the messengers for the gods. So she gave her these gold running shoes, kind of like Nike, but also she's not Nike. So yeah. All right, cool. Next photo. Next slide, please. Oh. Yeah, I talked to, they're there. Okay. Ooh, these are some of my favorites right here. So you have the story of, yes, okay, you can see them all. You have the story, like I said, of Baucis and Philemon, and Aaron put them in these garbs, attires of brown. And then, so it wouldn't give too much away. They kind of look like a tree trunk, but not necessarily. And then at the very end of the show, she came up with this idea of slipping on a glove on their hand in order to symbolize, we are now a tree. It was good stuff. And right here, this is Eurydice, from Orpheus and Eurydice. Aaron and I both were not tied to the traditional American wedding of a white dress. So she actually did some research and came to me with the idea of having a West Indian wedding. And I thought it was hot to trot. So Eurydice starts with this blue robe on, and then after she's bitten by the snake and goes down to the underworld, she transitions into this slip that is under the robe that goes from white into this ombre of blue, which was really pretty. All right, and then can you scroll over to this snake guy? So this is Eerie Sigthin. I talked about him a little bit before, but like I said, he's a snake in the grass. He's not very nice because, look, I told you, he sold his mother. And so to help along his storyline, Aaron had him in this attire, but also if you were to really look at this photo, you could see that the pattern of these blues, or this line pattern, is of a snake. And right here, the snake is sitting on his shoulder, ready to go and attack. All right, next photo. So yeah, those are just some of the designs. I showed you the ones that you could actually see. You can't see sound or lights, but just know Craig and Tiffany were doing an amazing job with what they were pulling together for the show. The rehearsal process. We got 2 weeks in before we were told we had to stop. And I call it a cease and desist. That's what I call it. Yes, we got 2 weeks in before we had to stop. And I just we actually had accomplished a lot. This is an ensemble heavy show, and a part of how I did that was we had a day of world building. And Amanda, what is world building? World building is where I came up with a bunch of games that actually correlated into the show, and we learned all of those games on one day. So when it was time to add them to the show, we already knew what to do. So for instance, we played the pace game. And, and that pace game is actually in the opening of the show, and it's also in the Pandora sequence of the show. So it wasn't just, oh, let's play games to play games. Each game, in a sense, correlated to a moment in the show in order to help the movement that I saw in the show. There was also, in order to help build ensemble work, was a group warm-up. Every day, regardless of if you were called for the rest of the night, we had a group physical warm-up and a vocal warm-up that was done. Because as you saw on that set, there's 3 levels. I did not need to worry about if you could make it up those stairs in time and also be back down at the pool. I needed to know your body was physically warm and that it was physically in shape to do it. So that is why I had a physical warm-up every day of rehearsal. What else? So that is a little bit about how I built the ensemble process. There's also this, there was, like I said, we were able to block every moment of the show. And by the end, we were able to run the show. And for me, that was a fulfilling moment, knowing that I had to stop this process because I saw the potential. I saw where we were going, and it brought my heart joy. And it was also very much so a learning process because even though I didn't get to, or the actors didn't get to perform this, the designer's work didn't get shown, we knew, or specifically I knew as the director, this was going to be an amazing production. And I learned so much, and that's just a lovely thing to be able to take away from all of this. So yes, now that I have talked for like a solid 45, please ask me questions. Okay. Okay. I'm just waiting on y'all to ask me questions.
Because it's got a load.
I know.
Yeah, I was on mine. I was like, Carter asked.
Ooh, Carter.
What was the collaboration process like?
The collaboration process. It was definitely, it's very open. I'm a huge open type of director in the sense of I'll ask you questions. I hope you ask me questions back because I don't ever claim to know everything. And so when I ask questions, I'm really seeking the answers majority of the time. Sometimes I'm asking them because I want it to be their idea. I just need to plant the seed. But the collaboration process was very open. The designers came in with a lot of ideas, and yeah.
Sheldon asked, what was your favorite scene to block?
Okay, my favorite scene to block. What was my favorite scene to block? Okay, I didn't know it was going to be my favorite scene until we did it. But the opening, that opening, hot fire flames. It is good. It is so good. That was my favorite scene to block. I think, I can't speak for the entire cast, but some of them really enjoyed it. So yes. What were some of the other ideas than water that you looked at? I thought we could do it through fabric. Having long strips of fabric that would represent the water at certain moments of the time. I also thought we could use fog. I thought we could use fog and have like a pool structure and then fill it with fog, low-lying fog that could be done. There was also the beams of light from above that could, I thought, represent water when you're underwater or in water. So those are just some of the ideas I thought of. You talk about not liking some of the pictures your designers brought to you. Did they have to defend them, or did you reflect on them before you brought in their ideas? I honestly just asked them to explain it. Like I said, I'm a super collaborative person. If I don't understand where you're going, I'm definitely going to ask my questions, because maybe where you're going may be stronger than the vision I initially had. I always say, if my ideas from the beginning of the process, as in from when I first read the script to when we put it on at the very end of the process, don't change, then I don't think I grew as a director. So I say we talked about them. They didn't necessarily have to defend them. Some of them, I will say, didn't make the cut, as you saw in that image, that collage image. But yeah.
Joanne asked, what was your favorite part of the process?
What was my favorite part of the process? Okay, so it is a mixture of image day and it's a mixture of image day and then just the entire rehearsal with the actors. I really find it informative what they see, because they're actually living these characters' lives on stage for 90 minutes, 95. And so that's a really big part of the process that I like. So I guess rehearsal and then image day with the designers.
Kennedy, were there any moments in the script that it indicated that you were supposed to do specific blocking, that you decided to take a different autistic approach and vice versa?
Yes. I am laughing because if you know me as a director, stage directions are guidelines. They are not neat. They do not need to be adhered to at all times. But specifically, Orpheus and Eurydice. The script says they touch. And I mean, they look at each other. But I was like, but what if they touch? What if they're always looking at each other? And then it's when they touch, and that is when Eurydice is taken away from Orpheus. So that's something that we changed.
Why were you drawn to the overall theme of Metamorphoses / creation? How do you think your growth as a director plays into this?
I was attracted to Metamorphoses because it's out of my wheelhouse. I am such a realistic, grounded director. Metamorphoses, while it can be realistic in certain moments, it's myths. It's Greek and Roman myths put together, and that is not the fairy tale, in a sense, is not something I usually deal with. And for me as a director, I really had to step out of my box and ask the questions of, how do we accomplish this movement that I see in the piece, so it's not just a stagnant poetic show? And so looking up different types of movement styles and how to apply those through the games that I brought in on World Building Day was definitely something that I took away from this process and helped me grow as a director. What was the most challenging aspect of the entire project, and how did you overcome it? That's from Christian. I don't think we got there yet, but I was prepared to deal with the spillage of this pool because I was so concerned about the amount of water that would be on the stage. But I was thinking of backup plans. I'm pretty sure Jay Morris, the technical director, and Claire Brunier, the set designer, were thinking of backup plans. Kylie Mason, the stage manager, probably was also there thinking of backup plans. But I think that would have been the most challenging because I was worried about the water tracking on stage.
Travis's Sarah asked, if you could have your audience walk away from this show with one moment stuck in their mind, what moment would that be?
Ooh. Wow. Thank you, Sarah, for asking the tough ones. What moment would that be? I would say that it is What moment would it be? I would say it's more so of a thought, but I guess it's the final moment of the show, Midas, when he's able to find his daughter, and it just showed that he was willing to take the journey, that he was willing to endure who knows what in order to find a pool. Like I told you all that saying that Bacchus gives him. It is not, there is no directions in what Bacchus gives him. Walk as far as the ends of the earth, look for a pool of water that reflects the stars at night, wash your hands in it, and there is a chance that everything will be restored. That is not directions. That is not directions. And so I just appreciate Midas for taking the hardcore journey. And I think he's symbolic of what we should all do, is if there's something you want to go after, you should do it.
Sarah Dove, how did you choose the games used in rehearsals, and how did you decide to work these kinds of games into the show? Did I cut you off? I thought
No,
okay,
you didn't.
Okay, great. Yeah.
The games that I chose games that ask actors to step out of the norm. So, majority of us can walk. I'm not going to assume everybody can walk, but the majority of us can walk. And so I chose games that either ask the actors to walk in a different style. There's this lovely game from Anne Vogart's Viewpoints, and it's called the Obstacle Course. And so it asks the actors to take on a shape of an animal, and then you walk around, and then whoever's in charge of the game will tell one of the actors to be the leader, and then so everybody else has to morph into the animal shape that the leader is in. And then, but they can't turn their bodies or turn their heads in order to look at that person. And so it was great in the sense of sensing who's around you and learning what the other person looks like by focusing on what's around you. And what the actors started to do is they started to make a circle. And that also looked like the evolution process, because you could see what it was supposed to look like and then down the line of how it was slowly getting there. And while that sounds funny, it also is showing that, okay, they can change their bodies to make them all look as one. And did you decide to work? How did I decide to work those games in? That specific game is somewhat seen in Orpheus and Eurydice. There are the underlings in the underworld, and I did this to my actors. I'm so sorry, but they did amazing doing it. Is they circled the pool for about 6 minutes while the Orpheus and Eurydice scene went on. And they were following one after another, like slowly changing their bodies to whoever was the leader. So that's how one of the games got incorporated into the show. Do you see yourself coming back to this show in the future? Yes, I have to. This show is so lovely. It is necessary right now. I have to come back to this show. Maybe not in the near future, but definitely in the future before I die. Yeah. Last two questions. All right. Why were you drawn to the overall theme of Metamorphosis / creation? How do you think I answered that one. Mm-hmm. Okay.
We can get you some more light for the last two.
Okay.
Maybe we can.
You want to take them down, or you can just turn on the radio.
Yeah.
Last two questions. Look, I can come up with some things to talk about.
Can you just take one more?
I can come up with. Trust me, I texted my friends. I was like, just in case nobody asks me questions. Oh wait, there's a question.
Amanda with the backup.
Did you know you wanted to do a Greek show when you set out on this process? You're talking about the process of grad school? No, I knew I wanted to do a movement show for my final time in grad school. I got to assistant direct on Peter and the Starcatcher with Jodie Underwood as the Jodie. I think it's Jodie Carroll Underwood. Yes, as the assistant director. She was the third year MFA when I was the first year MFA. And I just knew I wanted to do something like that. I thought it was a lovely way to communicate theater. So I knew I wanted to do a show that could include movement, not necessarily a Greek show. And then what was the next step in the rehearsal process? Layering the intention into the text. We found blocking, we knew what we were doing, and now putting the intention behind that so everything lines up. But yeah, that was that. That was the next step in the rehearsal process. Oh my goodness, thank you all so much for coming. This means a lot to me. Like I said, I'm sad that we didn't get to do the show, but I definitely learned, and I think the actors also learned, the designers learned. It was a great journey for where we got to. So yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.